The Seattle morning hung heavy with a biting chill as Elena Carter stepped into the glass-walled lobby of Nova Innovations. Her copper locket catching the pale light filtering through the towering windows, its engraved words, "From the embers we rise," a silent echo of her grandmother's voice that had guided her through a childhood shattered by loss. At 38, Elena was the formidable CEO of a company pioneering AI-driven mental health solutions, her presence a blend of sharp intelligence and unyielding determination, her name synonymous with innovation in a city that thrived on it, yet beneath a tailored blazer and impeccable poise lay a heart armored by years of solitude shaped by the car accident that claimed their parents when she was 12, leaving her to navigate a world of foster homes and undiagnosed ADHD alone. The locket, her grandmother's final gift before she too passed, was more than jewelry. It was a talisman of resilience clutched in moments of doubt, though Elena would never confess how often those moments crept into her sleepless nights. Her office on the third floor was a sanctuary of order, every pen aligned, every report memorized to compensate for the chaotic dance of letters and numbers. Her ADHD once made unbearable, a secret she buried beneath her success, fearing judgment in a world that equated struggle with weakness. On this Wednesday, the hum of Nova Innovations filled the air, developers, coding therapists consulting the promise of their mental health app launch. Just days away until a shrill alarm pierced the rhythm, followed by a violent hiss as the sprinkler system malfunctioned, flooding the executive suites with icy water. Elena's voice rose above the chaos, steady and commanding as she ushered her team toward the emergency exits, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her dark hair pulled into a flawless bun, her calm masking the adrenaline surging within. She counted heads, her eyes scanning for every employee, ensuring no one was left behind, a reflex born from years of being the one overlooked. Once the last person cleared the stairwell, she darted back to her office. The laptop holding the app's final files was too critical to lose, not when it could reach thousands, struggling in silence as she had in school, wrestling with words that twisted and blurred. Her fingers grazed the device when a deafening click echoed. The electronic security system, triggered by the flood, locked her in water seeping under the door, cold and unyielding pooling around her desk. Panic clawed at her chest, a visceral memory of nights in foster homes waiting for someone, anyone, to notice her absence. Her breath quickening as she lunged for the door, only to find it unyielding. In her haste, the locket slipped from her wrist, splashing into the rising water, its gleam lost in the chaos. As she reached for it, her ankle twisted beneath her, a sharp pain shooting through her leg. She crumpled to the floor, her tailored suit soaked, her carefully constructed facade cracking as the water crept higher, now lapping at her knees, her heart pounding with a fear she hadn't felt since childhood. Elena Carter, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd turned her pain into purpose, sat helpless, her mind flooded with memories of her grandmother's warm hands fastening the locket around her wrist, whispering that she could rise from any ashes. Yet now, trapped alone with the water rising, and no one aware of her absence, she wondered if this time the embers would swallow her whole, her independence. A shield, now a weight pulling her under as she clutched her injured ankle, the cold seeping into her bones. The locket lay just out of reach, its inscription a distant promise, as she fought the urge to scream, her voice caught in her throat, silenced by the fear of being forgotten again. Daniel Harper stood in the small maintenance office of Nova Innovations, his calloused hands flipping through the week's inspection schedule, his mind already mapping out the day's tasks, while the faint hum of Seattle's morning traffic filtered through the window. At 42, he was a man of quiet competence, his broad shoulders carrying the weight of a life reshaped by loss. His wife, Clara, taken by leukemia 3 years prior, leaving him to raise their 9-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. Once a data analyst with dreams of leading tech projects, Daniel had traded late-night coding sessions for the steady hours of a maintenance supervisor, a choice made to be present for Lily's school plays, doctor visits, and bedtime stories, where He wove tales of adventure to keep her mother's memory alive. A faded photo of Clara tucked in his wallet was his daily ritual, a reminder of love's permanence and the cost of absence, his hazel eyes softening each time he glanced at it. This Wednesday, the alarm's sudden blare jolted him into action, his training kicking in as he guided employees out of the building, his clipboard a steady companion as he checked names against the evacuation list. Lily waited nearby, her school dismissed early due to a heating issue, her teacher keeping her close to the assembly point, her bright backpack bouncing as she waved at him, her trust in her father unwavering. As the crowd gathered outside, Daniel's sharp gaze scanned the faces, his stomach tightening when he noticed the absence of Elena Carter, the CEO, whose commanding presence was as much a fixture of Nova Innovations as its glass facade. The safety coordinator's worried glance confirmed it. Elena hadn't checked in, a discrepancy that sent a chill through him, not just from protocol, but from a deeper instinct honed by years of protecting those he loved. He crouched beside Lily, her brown curls framing a curious face, and said, "Stay with your teacher, sweetie. Daddy needs to make sure everyone's safe," his voice calm despite the urgency pulsing through him. Sprinting back into the building, he navigated the stairwell to the third floor, the faint sound of water hissing from the malfunctioning sprinklers, guiding him to the executive suites. Outside Elena's office, the door was sealed, the electronic lock glowing red, a sign of the system's automatic override. "Miss Carter, are you in there?" he called, his fist rapping the door, his tone steady but firm. A faint reply came through. "I'm here. I twisted my ankle." The door's locked relief washing over Daniel at the sound of her voice, though her strain was unmistakable. He pulled his override key and special access tool from his belt, equipment reserved for maintenance leads, his fingers working quickly as he spoke to keep her calm. "It's just a malfunction, no fire. You'll be out soon, Miss Carter." The lock clicked open, and he pushed through, finding Elena slumped against the wall, her tailored suit soaked, her dark hair clinging to her face as she clutched her ankle, pain etching lines across her usually composed features. Water pooled around the room, a chaos of wet papers and flickering lights, but Daniel's eyes caught the glint of a copper locket half submerged near her desk, its chain tangled in the mess. He knelt beside her, assessing her injury. "Looks like a sprain. Let me help you up," his voice gentle but sure as he retrieved the locket and pressed it into her trembling hand. Elena's fingers closed around it, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't expected from the woman who seemed to command the world itself. He supported her weight as they moved toward the door, her leaning on him, her breath uneven but steadying with each step. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raw, not just from pain but from something deeper, a fear. Daniel recognized the kind that came from being left behind. "No one gets left," he replied simply, his words carrying the weight of a promise born from his own losses. As they reached the safety of the assembly point, the company medic confirmed a mild sprain, and Daniel watched Elena insist on returning to work, her mask of control slipping back into place, though her grip on the locket betrayed her lingering unease. He saw her not as the untouchable CEO, but as someone who, like him, had known what it meant to lose everything and still stand. The days following the sprinkler incident at Nova Innovations settled into a quiet rhythm, the third-floor offices drying out under the hum of industrial fans. But for Elena Carter, the memory of being trapped lingered like a shadow, her copper locket now a constant weight on her wrist. "It's from the embers we rise" inscription catching her eye as she worked late into the evenings. Her ankle, bound in a supportive wrap, ached less with each day, but the vulnerability she'd felt in that flooded office clung stubbornly, a crack in the fortress of independence she'd built since losing her parents at 12, a loss that had left her navigating foster homes where her undiagnosed ADHD was mistaken for defiance, her quick mind buried under labels of difficult or distracted. At 38, Elena had channeled that pain into Nova Innovations, her AI-driven mental health solutions, a silent tribute to her own struggles, though she never spoke of her ADHD, guarding it like a wound too raw to expose. The company was her purpose, her shield, but it couldn't fill the silence of her sleek Seattle apartment, where awards lined the walls, but no voices broke the stillness. Daniel Harper, the maintenance supervisor who'd freed her from the locked office, became an unexpected presence in her routine, his quiet competence a contrast to her polished intensity. Each morning, he checked on her, clearing clutter from her office path to ease her mobility, dropping off a coffee with a simple, "Thought you might need this," that carried no expectation of thanks. His hazel eyes held a warmth that disarmed her, and though she nodded curtly, maintaining her CEO reserve, she noticed the way his hands moved with care, the same hands that had retrieved her locket from the water. One afternoon, as Elena reviewed app analytics, she spotted Lily, Daniel's 9-year-old daughter, in the lobby, her brown curls bouncing as she scribbled in a notebook, waiting for her father to finish his rounds. Lily's school had dismissed early again, and her teacher had dropped her off, her backpack a burst of color against the corporate gray. Elena, drawn by a curiosity she couldn't name, approached, her heels muffled by the sprain-induced flats she now wore. "What's that you're drawing?" she asked, settling carefully beside the girl, her usual formality softening. Lily's eyes lit up, and she showed Elena a chaotic sketch of a dragon, explaining its story with a rush of words that tumbled over each other, a familiar energy Elena recognized from her own childhood, when her mind raced faster than her words could keep up. "It's hard to get the wings right," Lily admitted, her pencil pausing, "because my brain keeps jumping to the next part." Elena's heart tightened, seeing herself in the girl's frustration, and she offered a tip she'd learned in college. "Try drawing one wing at a time, maybe with a blue pencil to slow your thoughts." Lily tried it, her face brightening as the lines steadied, and Elena felt a warmth she hadn't known in years, a connection born from shared struggle. Over the next 2 weeks, these lobby encounters became a quiet ritual, Lily waiting for Daniel, and Elena pausing to chat, first about drawings, then about school, where Lily confessed her trouble with math, the numbers dancing around in her head. Elena, without thinking, shared a trick she'd used color-coding numbers to anchor them, careful not to mention her own ADHD, though Lily's wide-eyed "that actually helps" stirred something deep within her, a memory of the girl she'd been, dismissed as lazy until she found her own way. Daniel noticed these moments, catching glimpses of Elena kneeling beside Lily, her usual sharp edges softened, her laughter genuine as Lily showed her a new sketch. He saw beyond the CEO to a woman who understood his daughter in a way few could, her patience a mirror to his late wife Clara's, a special education teacher who taught him to recognize the signs of a restless mind. One evening, as Elena handed Lily a small puzzle from Nova's developmental lab, a prototype for their mental health app, Daniel approached, his clipboard tucked under his arm. "You're good with her," he said, his voice low, almost surprised. Elena brushed it off. "She's bright, just needs a little help focusing." But her eyes lingered on Lily, who was now engrossed in the puzzle, and Daniel saw a flicker of something. Unguarded, a longing she quickly hid. Their elevator rides together grew longer, conversations stretching from building maintenance to Lily's latest school project, Daniel sharing how he'd learned to braid her hair after Clara's death, Elena admitting she'd once burned a cake trying to bake for a foster family. These exchanges, brief but heavy with meaning, began to chip away at Elena's walls, her carefully curated isolation giving way to the warmth of connection, though she fought the vulnerability it brought. Daniel, too, felt a shift, his life, once defined by loss and duty, now touched by moments of lightness. The way Elena's rare smiles mirrored Lily's, yet Elena's past held her back. The fear of abandonment, a quiet ache, her locket a reminder of promises kept only to herself. For Daniel, his world revolved around Lily, his greatest fear failing her, not being enough to fill the space Clara left. But in Elena's presence, he glimpsed a possibility of shared burdens, a thought both comforting and terrifying. As Lily waved goodbye one day, clutching the puzzle Elena had given her, Daniel caught Elena's eye, and for a moment, they stood in the lobby. Two people shaped by a loss, yet drawn to the promise of being seen. Elena Carter sat at her desk, the Seattle skyline dimming beyond her office window, her copper locket resting against her wrist as she reviewed Nova Innovation's latest mental health app metrics. But her thoughts drifted to Lily's bright smile and the way the girl's chaotic sketches mirrored her own restless mind from years ago. The bond she'd formed with Lily over the past weeks had stirred something unfamiliar, a warmth that threatened the walls she'd built since losing her parents at 12. When foster homes and undiagnosed ADHD left her feeling broken, her intelligence mistaken for defiance until she learned to mask it with perfection. At 38, Elena had crafted a life of control, her CEO title a shield against the loneliness that haunted her sleek apartment. But Lily's unguarded trust and Daniel Harper's quiet kindness had begun to unravel that armor, exposing the longing for connection she'd long buried. Her interactions with Lily in the lobby, sharing color-coding tricks and small puzzles from Nova's lab, felt like a bridge to the girl she'd been, struggling with numbers that danced and words that blurred. Yet Elena still held back, never admitting her own ADHD, fearing it would taint her reputation as the honoring leader of a tech empire. Daniel's presence, too, complicated things. His steady gaze and understated care like the coffee he left on her desk or the way he cleared her office path for her sprained ankle making her feel seen in a way that both comforted and terrified her. One afternoon, as Lily showed Elena a math worksheet marked with red corrections, her small voice confessed, "I tried so hard, but the numbers keep mixing up," and Elena's heart clenched, recognizing the shame she'd felt in school, dismissed as not trying hard enough. Without hesitation, she shared another trick breaking equations into smaller chunks with colored markers and watched Lily's face light up as the numbers settled, a victory that felt like her own. That evening, alone in her office, Elena made a decision driven by the memory of her own solitary struggle, the years of fighting to prove her worth without the tools she needed. She contacted Nova's charitable foundation, directing them to establish an anonymous ADHD support program at Lily's school, funding specialized tutoring and resources to ensure no child faced the isolation she had. Her locket's asterisk from the Embers We Rise asterisk inscription, a quiet spur to act. She told herself it was for Lily, for all the kids like her, but deep down, it was also for the 12-year-old Elena, desperate for someone to see her potential. Weeks later, Daniel appeared at her office door, his usual warmth replaced by a taut expression, his clipboard gripped tightly as he closed the door behind him. "I need to talk," he said, his voice controlled but edged with something raw. "I found out about the new ADHD program at Lily's school. Started right after you learned about her struggles." Elena's pulse quickened, her professional mask intact. As she replied, "The foundation supports many initiatives," but Daniel's eyes flashed, cutting through her deflection. "Don't, Elena. The timing, the focus on ADHD, Lily being the first recipient, it's you." She hadn't expected him to connect the dots so quickly, had hoped the anonymity would spare his pride, but his words stung, laced with a hurt she hadn't anticipated. "I don't need your charity," he said, his voice sharper now. "Lily and I have managed since Clara died. We're not a project for you to fix." The accusation landed like a blow, echoing the rejections of her childhood when her efforts to belong were met with dismissal. "This isn't charity," she countered, rising despite her still tender ankle, her voice steady but her hands trembling around the locket. "It's about giving Lily what I never had tools to succeed." Daniel shook his head, his own fears surfacing. The persistent worry that he wasn't enough for his daughter without Clara. "You don't get it," he said, softer now, but no less firm. "People look at us with pity, thinking I can't provide. Lily needs people who see her, not a CEO solving problems with money." The words cut deeper than he knew, striking at Elena's own fear of being unseen, her ADHD a secret she'd hidden. To avoid being reduced to a flaw. "I understand that better than you think," she said, her voice breaking as she revealed what she'd guarded for years. "I grew up with ADHD, undiagnosed until I was 20. I was called lazy slow until I figured out how to hide it. I just wanted Lily to have it easier." The confession hung between them, raw and unguarded, the first time Alana had spoken her truth aloud in years. Daniel's expression softened, but his pride held firm, wounded by the implication he couldn't give Lily what she needed. "I appreciate what you meant," he said finally, turning to leave. "But next time, talk to me first. We're not your cause." He paused at the door, his voice quieter. "I'm sorry for what you went through, Elena. No one should face that alone." After he left, Elena sank into her chair, the locket heavy on her wrist, its promise of rising now. A reminder of her misstep. She'd reached out, tried to bridge their worlds, only to widen the gap, her attempt to help twisting into a rejection that echoed her childhood. The office, once a sanctuary, felt colder, her isolation creeping back. As she stared at the city lights, wondering why connection always came at such a cost. Daniel, too, felt the weight of their clash, regret gnawing at him as he drove Lily home, her questions about Miss Elena unanswered, her small hand clutching a drawing she'd made for her. He hadn't meant to push Elena away, but the fear of failing Lily, of not being enough, had clouded his judgment, turning her kindness into a wound. The distance between them grew, Elena retreating behind her closed office door, Daniel taking alternate routes to avoid the executive floor, both haunted by words unsaid and a connection left fractured. The air in Seattle carried a faint autumn Christmas as Nova Innovations hummed with its usual rhythm. But the tension between Elena Carter and Daniel Harper lingered like an unspoken storm, their once warming interactions replaced by polite nods and avoided glances, her copper locket now a bittersweet weight on her wrist. "It's from the embers we rise" inscription, a reminder of both her resilience and her recent failure to connect. Elena, at 38, had retreated deeper into her role as CEO, her office a fortress of reports and schedules, her undiagnosed ADHD from childhood, a secret she'd shared with Daniel only to feel it backfire, his rejection echoing the dismissals of foster homes where her quick mind was misjudged as chaos. The memory of their confrontation stung, his words about charity cutting into her fear of being unseen. Yet she couldn't shake the image of Lily's bright eyes, the girl's struggles, with ADHD mirroring her own, a bond she'd hoped to nurture now severed by her misstep. Daniel, too, carried regret, his 42-year-old heart heavy with the knowledge that his pride had pushed away someone who genuinely understood his daughter. His life as a single father to Lily, defined by the loss of his wife Clara to leukemia, a chiastic grief that made him fiercely protective yet blind to Elena's intent. Lily, oblivious to the adult rift, kept asking about Miss Elena, her drawings now including a figure with dark hair and a kind smile, a child's hope that broken things could mend. 4 months after their clash, on a gray afternoon, a real electrical fire sparked in the building's server room, the acrid smell of smoke triggering alarms as employees rushed to evacuate, chaos erupting in the normally orderly halls of Nova Innovations. Daniel was finishing his rounds, Lily with him for a take-your-child-to-work day, her backpack slung over her shoulder as she chatted about her latest dragon sketch. The alarm sent Daniel into action, guiding Lily toward the exit. But in the confusion, she wandered into a nearby conference room to grab her forgotten notebook, the door's electronic lock snapping shut behind her as the fire suppression system engaged. Elena, just leaving a meeting with investors, heard a faint cry through the smoke-haze corridor, her heart lurching as she recognized Lily's voice, small and frightened, calling out from the locked room. Without hesitation, she ran toward the sound, her flat slipping on the polished floor, the memory of her own trapped terror in the flooded office, months ago fueling her resolve not to let Lily feel that same abandonment. "Lily, it's Elena. I'm here," she called, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest, her locket glinting as she pressed against the door. "I can't open it." Lily's voice trembled. "It's stuck, and I'm scared." Elena's mind raced, recalling the building's safety protocols, her own fear of confinement surging, but pushed aside by the need to act. "You're not alone, sweetheart," she said, her tone calm, a lifeline through the door. "Do you remember your dad's trick with the blue button under the lock?" Lily's shaky reply came, "Yes, but it's too high." Elena guided her, step by step. "Pull a chair to the door. Climb up carefully and press the button when I tell you." Meanwhile, she fumbled in her purse for her CEO all-access card, its override function, a rare tool she'd never used in a crisis. The smoke thickened, stinging her eyes, but she slid the card into the slot, coordinating with Lily's small hands pressing the button inside, their teamwork unlocking the door with a soft click. Lily flung herself into Elena's arms, her small body trembling as she clung tightly. "Thank you, Miss Elena. I was so scared." Elena held her close, her own heart slowing as she whispered, "It's okay to be scared, Lily. It means you're alive, and you're safe now." Daniel, frantic after realizing Lily wasn't at the assembly point, sprinted through the evacuating crowd, his breath catching when he saw Elena and Lily emerging from the haze, Lily's hand in hers. He rushed forward, scooping Lily into a fierce hug, his eyes meeting Elena's over his daughter's shoulder, gratitude and something deeper shimmering in his gaze. "Thank you," he said, the words simple but heavy with everything unsaid, a recognition of her courage and care. Elena nodded, her throat tight, the locket warm against her skin as she stepped back, giving father and daughter their moment. As the fire crew secured the building, Lily, still clutching Elena's hand, looked up, her voice small but clear. "You're brave, Miss Elena. Like my dad said, you don't like small spaces either, but you came for me." Elena knelt, her elegant skirt brushing the ground, and smiled. "Brave doesn't mean not being scared, Lily. It means doing what's needed anyway." Daniel watched, his regret from their earlier clash resurfacing, seeing now how Elena's actions weren't charity, but a reflection of her own struggles, her rescue of Lily a mirror to his own of her months ago. Later, in the parking lot, as the last fire trucks pulled away, Daniel approached Elena, Lily asleep in his car nearby. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice low. "I was wrong to push you away. I let my pride get in the way of what you were trying to do for Lily." Elena shook her head, her locket catching the fading light. "You were protecting her, I understand. That more than you know." Daniel reached into his pocket, pulling out a small beaded necklace Lily had made, its colors bright and uneven. "She wanted you to have this," he said, "to go with your locket." Elena's eyes welled as she slipped it on, the child's gift a weightless counterpoint to her grandmother's heavy copper, a symbol of a new kind of connection. "It's perfect," she whispered, her voice catching, and Daniel's gaze softened. A silent acknowledgement of the bridge they'd begun to rebuild. In that moment, surrounded by the fading chaos of the day, they stood as two people who'd known loss and fear, finding in each other a shared strength, a promise to rise together from the ashes of their pasts. The Seattle skyline glowed under a late summer dusk as Elena Carter stood on the terrace of Nova Innovation's Carter Learning Hub. Her copper locket and Lily's beaded necklace intertwined on her wrist, their weight a symbol of her journey. From solitary resilience to shared connection. The words, "From the embers we rise now," a promise fulfilled for a community she'd built. At 38, Elena had turned the pain of losing her parents at 12 and navigating foster homes with undiagnosed ADHD into a legacy of purpose. Her tech empire no longer a shield, but a bridge to others. Her public acknowledgement of her ADHD at the hubs, opening a bold step that shed her long-held mask. The hub, a vibrant space for children with ADHD and learning differences, buzzed with families, its walls alive with interactive tools and colorful workstations, a stark contrast to the sterile classrooms where Elena once felt broken. Over the past year, her bond with Daniel Harper and his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, had deepened through shared dinners at Daniel's cozy apartment, museum outings where Elena explained tactile exhibits, and quiet mornings over coffee while Lily slept, their conversations weaving a tapestry of loss and hope. Daniel, 42, had carried the weight of his wife Clara's death from leukemia, his life as a single father defined by the fear of failing Lily, but Elena's understanding of Lily's ADHD struggles eased that burden, her resilience mirroring his quiet strength. Their first dinner after the fire had been tentative, Daniel's apology and Lily's necklace a fragile bridge, but it led to more picnics where Lily ran through parks, Elena teaching her to organize thoughts with colored notebooks, Daniel watching with a warmth that softened his guarded heart. Elena shared her foster home years, the nights memorizing texts to hide her ADHD, the loneliness of success without connection, while Daniel admitted his fear of not being enough for Lily. His ritual of carrying Clara's photo, a way to honor her while moving forward. These confessions built trust, Elena's corporate edge softening, Daniel's caution giving way to openness. Lily thrived, her ADHD less a barrier as she used Elena's strategies colored overlays. Chunk tasks, her confidence growing, her drawings now showing 3 figures, herself, Daniel, Elena, a family of choice. At the hub's opening, Elena stood on a stage, not the distant CEO, but a woman sharing her journey, her voice steady as she spoke of her dyslexia struggles, the fire that took her parents, the foster homes where she felt unseen, telling the crowd, different isn't broken, it's just another way to shine. Lily, now 10, sat in the front row, wearing a small locket Elena had gifted her, a symbol of belief, her eyes bright with pride. Daniel, now safety coordinator, stood beside her, his role designing child-friendly safety systems, a nod to his protective instincts. As Elena stepped off the stage, Lily rushed to hug her, Daniel following, his hand grazing Elena's, a silent promise of partnership. On the terrace, overlooking Seattle, Elena wore both necklaces, her voice soft as she told Daniel, "I thought strength meant standing alone, but it's in letting others in." He smiled, squeezing her hand. "Sometimes you have to get lost to be found." Lily called them over, and they walked together, no longer just CEO and employee, but a family forged from ashes, stronger for it.